Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video, we're going to look at the last Mirage MTGO deck, which is Ride Like the Wind, which is a white and red deck. So let's look at the deck list for this one. So we've got 25 creatures, 4 instants, 3 enchantments, 2 sorceries, 2 artifacts, and 24 land. We've got a mana curve off on the side there, nice and low. So it's going to be kind of like white-red, sort of like aggro weenie, which is actually quite interesting that it's being done with these older cards. Slight tangent before we get into the looking at the cards, but white red aggro, weirdly like a rare kind of color combination and strategy actually. If you look at kind of like old decks, I know this these Mirage decks came out in 2005, so sort of like right in the middle of sort of original Ravnica area. But if you look at like the season 1 decks they did, like which was the the classic frame ones from Tempest all the way up to Scourge, very few red and white decks, which is so weird to me because red white, in my opinion, is one of the easiest color combinations to put into like a pre-constructed deck like this and teaching your player, because it's it's go wide, it's a lot of small aggressive creatures with burn and buffs and stuff, and I always thought it was weird that it just wasn't used that much. Anyway, enough of that tangent. Let's actually get into talking about the cards here. So the two rares in the deck, this is actually really nice. They're actually both legendary creatures. I think this is like really fun thing to do. So we have Saidar Jabari, so 3 and a white for a 2/2 with flanking. A lot of creatures in the deck have flanking. It was a mechanic that was really heavy in white and red in Mirage block. Under modern set design, it would kind of be like, I guess, like the draft archetype. So flanking is, if you don't know, and I don't blame you for not knowing, whenever a creature without flanking blocks a creature that has flanking, the creature without flanking gets -1/-1 until end of turn. So it basically means is like an X1 will automatically die the second it blocks like a creature that's got flanking, and I guess it represents like the creature with flanking be able to like maneuver around and sort of like get an extra hit in or something like that. So it's kind of a cool keyword actually. And yeah, I just like it. It's an interesting effect to have that makes enemy blockers worse rather than making your attacker better. Obviously, it does nothing when a flanking creature blocks itself, but I think it's like just a fun keyword. So Saidar Jabari, whenever he attacks, you tap a creature. So he's basically just like a seasoned marshal. Like four mana for a 2/2 with this kind of tap on attack trigger. The only thing that makes him special, he's got flanking as well. So yeah, legends were a lot tamer back in the day. And then the other rare in the deck is Telim Tor, or as he's known to Magic the Gathering players of a certain vintage, Mr. Toilet. So 4 and a red for a 2/2, also has flanking. When he attacks, gives all your attacking creatures with flanking +1/+1 turn 10. So we are like some sort of like flanking tribal synergy, like mechanical keyword lord, I suppose. A lot, like I said, a lot of creatures in the deck have flanking, so there's a lot for Mr. Toilet to do here. But yeah, I think both these are really nice inclusions. It is refreshing to see like 2 legendary creatures, I think, as the rares in the deck. Yeah. Right, and then onto all like these creatures with the flanking, which is I just think it's a cool thing to base a deck around. All these Mirage decks I think have actually done like really well in terms of like having a really like fun identity and theme to it. So we've got 3 Burning Shield Ascari, 2 and red for a 2/2 with flanking, and you spend a double red to give it first strike turn. I think this is actually perfectly fine for the time. Like 3 mana for a 2/2 with an ability would have been like pretty okay for red at the time. It's got no drawback, and having this activated ability to get first strike as well. I think it's actually pretty good for the time. And then we've got 3 Searing Spear Ascari, 2 and red for a 2/2 with flanking, and very similar to Burning Shield Ascari, it's got an activated ability, so 1 and a red, it cannot, so it gets Menace until end of turn. Which is both these I think are really good, like especially for the time. I think these are doing like pretty good like red like common creatures to have, like I say, like 3 mana for a 2/2 with basically all upside, was was kind of rare honestly back in the day. So yeah, actually I really like both of these. And then we've got 3 Ephemeref Knights, 2 and a white for a 2/2 with flanking. So this is like kind of a stat line we're going to see a lot, like 3 mana, 2/2 flanking, and then like and basically like an activated ability to get a keyword. You pay 1 white to give it vigilance and turn 10. So yeah, again, like very straightforward, and I think absolutely fine for the time. Then we've got 3 Zalfiran Knight, 2 and a white for a 2/2 with flanking. Like I said, it's a keyword it's a sort of a combination that we're gonna see a lot. And it's actually, hang on, is that identical? That is identical to Burning Shield Ascari. Yep, you can pay double white to go to first strike to end turn. So there we go. You essentially have 6 copies of an identical card. We've got 2 Zalfiran Commander, 2 and a white for a 2/2 with flanking. Again, it's such a just a stat line, and then we just like copy paste it and just stick a new ability on it. So this one actually has like a bit of like fun tribals into, which was like actually quite rare at the time. So 1 double white to give a knight +1/+1 to end turn, and quite a few of those cards we've seen are knights. So with let's see, so we got 9 there, 12, yeah. So we got like 14 knights, and I think Saida Jabari and Telim Tor were like oracled to be knights as well. So I think when playing it online, like you would have been able to give the buff to them as well. I mean, by today's standards, like that's really, really overcosted. Like 3 mana just to give like a creature of a certain type, like only just +1/+1. But like for the time, it was it was what it was. And then 3 Matenda Herders, 1 white mana just for a 1/1 with flanking, which is again absolutely I think fine as a 1-drop. It's a 1-drop that can't be chumped by. I mean, it can be chumped by other X1s, but like they just immediately die. So it can potentially take down X2s, which I think is pretty fun as long as they don't have flanking as well, obviously. And then a bunch of other non-things, but we've basically used up all the creature with the flanking now, so we're just going to kind of fill in with just some random stuff. So we've got a single Melesse Spirit, 3 and double white for a 3/3 of flying and pro black, which is like fine, I think. Crimson Rock, this is like a little bit tragic, I think. This isn't great. So 4 and a red for a 2/2 flying, which is like a horrible stat line. And then when it blocks any creature which doesn't have flying, it gets +1/+0. It gets first strike to end turn, so it gets slightly better at blocking non-flying creatures. But like, I mean, it only goes up to like being a 3/2. Like it's not it's not amazing. And is that really the best thing you want to spend like 5 mana on? Just for like a kind of a subpar flyer with like just an ability that triggers when it blocks. Like it's not great, is it? So yeah, can't give the thumbs up to Crimson Rock. I suppose it is from a time when Red just had kind of like weak, bad flyers. So I suppose it makes sense, I suppose. And then we've got a single Iron Tusk Elephant, 4 and a white for a 3/3 with trample. Always refreshing to see a white creature, a mono white creature with trample, just because you don't see it that often. Yeah, I think it's still a bit overcosted, but again, like trample is not a keyword mono white usually gets, so I suppose I can deal with it being slightly more expensive. And then a single Vigilant Martyr, so 1 white mana for a 1/1. You can sacrifice it to regenerate target creature, which is not terrible. You can spend a double white tap and sacrifice it to counter a spell that targets an enchantment in play. To play this ability as an interrupt. Lovely old wording there. Yeah, so it's a white counter spell, which is kind of rare, but it can only protect enchantments. And from what I remember, I don't think you have a huge number of enchantments in the deck, or like ones that are like worth maybe protecting. We'll see. But yeah, it's okay as like just a 1-drop. I think just if you were modifying this with like the card pool at the time, you would just have more like Matenda Herders or like extra knights or something. And then 2 Blistering Barriers, 2 and a red for a 5/2 with like the weirdest art. I've like so I'm trying to work out like younger me always thought like the mouth with the lips and the teeth and stuff was the barrier or something, but like I'm guessing that the viewpoint is like from inside the mouth of like the person who's like looking at the wall of fire. I guess it's super weird. It's super weird art. And it's just like a 5/2 defender, which is like okay. I mean, like it's a big scary blocker to attack into, I suppose, but it's no wall of razors, which I know is in the next set, but yeah, it's fine, I suppose. Again, it's just kind of here to fill space a little bit. So yeah, here we got the non-creature spells. So we got a single agility. So 1 red give enchanted creature +1/+1 and flanking. So the majority of the creatures in the deck already have flanking. So this doesn't have a huge number of like targets. I guess you could put it on like the elephant, I suppose, or what else could it put it on? Would you put it on? There's no point putting on a Blistering Barrier. That you wouldn't really put it on the Vigilant Martyr, I suppose. I mean, like, it's fine. You've only got one of them, but like, it doesn't have a huge number of targets. But yeah, it is what it is. Actually, I lie because flanking can stack. Because I remember there's the creature in Cavalry Master in Time Spiral block that gives like your creature with flanking extra flanking. So flanking is an ability where it can stack. So there we go. We found a use for it. So you can give a creature double flanking. If I'm wrong about that, someone say in the comments below. But I'm fairly certain you can stack flanking. Then we've got 2 Favourable Destiny. So 1 white. As long as enchanted creatures controller controls at least one other creature, enchanted creature has Shroud, and as long as enchanted creature is white, it gets +1/+2. So there is obviously like a chance this will just not have like a decent target. It's kind of like a cool kind of flavorful effect, I suppose. Like as long as you've got someone else there, then the creature can't be targeted, which is okay. It being only giving a boost only to white creatures is kind of a pain. I would prefer it obviously if it maybe gave like +1/+1, and then if it's white, it gets like an extra like bonus, I suppose. It's okay, I suppose. And then 2 Spitting Earth, 1 red, does damage to target creature equal to the number of mountains you control, which is always going to be a shame. We're in a 2-color deck, so obviously the mana base is split, so there is a chance this isn't going to do a huge amount of damage. So obviously you've got plains and mountains, but like it's still okay. Like for 2 mana, I think you want this to at least like 4 damage for it to feel like a good deal, I suppose. Yeah, it's okay. Potentially quite high ceiling on Spitting Earth. We've got a single Alarum. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. So 1 white, untap target non-attacking creature, and it gets +1/+3 until end of turn. So basically just to get a surprise blocker, essentially, and to make them a bit tougher to deal with. Yeah, it's okay. It's like kind of a combat trick, I suppose. It's certainly better than this other one, Aleatory, which again, I think that's how it's pronounced. A lot of weird card names in Mirage. So 1 red, play only after blockers are declared. You flip a coin. If you win the flip, target creature gets +1/+1 to end turn, and you draw a card at the beginning of next turn's upkeep. So it's it's this huge potential, like you got like a lot of hoops to jump through for like such a minimal upside. Is you got to like do it after blockers declared. So like it's essentially a coin flip whether like this trick is going to work out for you, right? If you're like if your attacker is going to maybe get over the blocker, or like your blocker is going to like survive whatever it blocks. I suppose you get a card draw out of it as well, but then if the coin flip fails, then you're only just getting it's not even an immediate card draw. So I don't love Aleatory. I think this is something you could easily sub out for a more reliable buff spell if they sort of existed at the time. I'm sure there was. And then a single Shadowbane, 1 white. Prevent all damage to you or a creature you control from any one source, which is not terrible for 2 mana. If the source is black, you gain 1 life for every 1 damage prevented that way. So that's actually a nice little extra bonus there. Yeah, 2 mana, I think, just to prevent. The fact that it can prevent damage to you or creatures, I think, is really nice. I would expect sort of a card of this era just to prevent either a set amount of damage, like 4 or something, like 4 amount of damage. But the fact it prevents all damage is only from a single source as well. But yeah, it can do you or it can do a creature, and I think that's okay. Again, it's an okay little trick, I think. And then finally, we've got 2 artifacts. Telim Tor's Darts, 2 mana. You spend 2 and tap it to do 1 damage target player. So it's okay, isn't it? It's kind of like just Prodigal Sorcerer as an artifact. It's okay, I suppose. Just an extra bit of non-combat damage if you just need to sneak that through after being very aggressive with your knights. And then 12 plains and 12 mountains. So let's talk about what could have been. So I quite like this deck actually. I think it would play very consistently just because you got something like 3 of like the flanking knights, and then the rest is kind of just filler. So I think it would play sort of okay. And what's here I quite like. I quite like all those knights. But obviously there's always room for improvement. I think like the biggest change would be to take out like Aleatory for a couple of Incinerates. I think that would have worked really, really well. Because obviously Incinerate is just, I think, just outright better, isn't it? Because it's just a straight up 3 damage, so you can kill off troublesome enemy creatures, or you can get like the extra 3 damage into to an opponent, or to like a bigger creature that like your smaller knights can't deal with. So yeah, I think this deck definitely would have been better with some Incinerates in it. And then possibly Lightning Reflexes here as an aura. It's one of these ones that can be played as an instant, but if you do it, it gets does get sacrificed, it gets buried, which is still weird. Just to give +1/+0 on first strike, which is okay. The fact it can be played at instant speed means it can be essentially like a combat trick, which is okay for the time. And then as an alternate rare, I actually like having the two kind of flanking lords in here, but I'd really, really like Final Fortune. I love these kind of red extra turn spells where like you get one extra turn, but you have to win this turn. I always think that's like a really fun design. And Final Fortune, I think, is the very first one. So double reds to take an extra turn after after this one. I mean, so taking an extra turn for 2 mana is obviously incredible. But yeah, so you lose the game at the end of that turn, so you have to win in that extra turn. But if you're playing like a very aggro deck and you've got like all these kind of swarm of like small creatures, just getting an extra like an extra turn, an extra like round of combat in could that could cinch it for you. So yeah, I would have really liked that to be in here. I think that would do maybe instead of like Saidar Jabari, maybe because he's not doing anything particularly well. Definitely, I think leave Mr. Toilet in there. So yeah, have Telim Tor and Final Fortune as the rares. I think that would have maybe worked out a little bit better. So yeah, as I was saying, I think this one's pretty good. I think it's probably my favorite one out of all these out of all the Mirage ones. I mean, like I said, all the other three have like had like quite a nice identity and like kind of charm to them. But this one I think is probably my favorite one. I say just because I think it would play probably a bit better, just because like the cards are more consistent, and you don't have any cards with like terrible like old magic like drawbacks or anything. So yeah, this one is probably my favorite. So yeah, I like this one. I would love to know what you think about this one as well. If you've got any thoughts or comments or stories, opinions about the deck or any of the cards in it, stick a comment below. I'll give those a read. I always do. But we're now done with the Mirage MTGO deck. So in the next video, we're going to move on and start looking at the next set, which is Visions. And like Mirage, it's got 4 of those. So we're going to look at those and the strategies and mechanics that were used in them. So I hope you join me for that. But until then, thanks for watching, listening, and have a great day.